They called him the NFL's resident psycho, a man who didn't just break opponents, but broke the game itself. In the 1982 playoffs, Lyle Alzado ripped a rival's helmet off and hurled it like a missile, detonating chaos on the field and forcing the NFL to draft a rule: use a helmet as a weapon and you're gone. This wasn't just violence. It was the moment a single berserker forced the league to change. But how did a Brooklyn street kid, born from nothing, fueled by rage, become the ultimate rule breaker who made football rewrite itself? Here's the true story behind the psycho who forced the NFL to change their rules. Lyle Alzado was born April 3, 1949, in Brooklyn, New York, into a world that didn't offer much softness. His father, Maurice, was a street brawler and a drinker, and by the time Lyle turned 10, the family had moved to Inwood on Long Island. The new neighborhood didn't bring stability. Money was tight, the family was fractured, and his father's violence left scars that never really faded. When Maurice walked out for good during Lyle's sophomore year of high school, the message was clear: no one was coming to save him. Lyle worked as a janitor at Lawrence High just to help his mother Martha keep the lights on. Lunch money came from his football coach, not from home. Football wasn't just a game. It was an outlet for the anger and the need to prove he was more than a kid from nowhere. In high school, he played with a chip on his shoulder, earning All-American honors, but drawing little attention from college scouts. No scholarships came. He started at Kilgore Junior College in Texas, then bounced to Yankton College in South Dakota, an NAIA school with barely a blip on the football map. It was pure chance that Denver Broncos scout Stan Jones noticed him while watching film for another player. Jones saw a defensive lineman who never stopped, relentless, raw, and mean. That was enough. Alzado waited out the 1971 NFL draft in the Yankton athletic director's office, phone silent for hours. When the call finally came, he was the 79th pick, 4th round, Denver Broncos. No one from Yankton had ever been drafted before. He'd been overlooked, doubted, and written off at every stop. But the rage that started in a Brooklyn apartment and sharpened in empty lunchrooms and empty promises was coming with him to the NFL. He didn't just want to play. He wanted to make the league regret every slight, every dismissal, every time someone turned their back. That chip on his shoulder would become his calling card. The 1977 season in Denver changed everything. The Broncos unleashed a defense so suffocating, so relentless, it earned a name of its own: the Orange Crush. Opponents averaged just 10.6 points per game against them, third best in the league that year. And the Broncos finished 12-2, the best record in franchise history to that point. Alzado, now in his prime, anchored the line with a fury that set the tone for everyone behind him. 8 sacks, 119 tackles, and a constant stream of havoc in the backfield. The numbers told one story, but the fear he inspired told another. Teams spent all week scheming for him, then watched those plans unravel by the second quarter. That defense didn't just stop drives, it broke wills. 7 times that season, Denver held opponents under 10 points. Only once in 14 games did anyone manage more than 20. Alzado's motor was the engine. He earned first-team All-Pro and UPI AFC Defensive Player of the Year honors, and for the first time in his life, the league had no choice but to notice. The Orange Crush powered Denver past the Steelers and the Raiders in the playoffs, 2 teams that had won the last 3 Super Bowls, before finally falling to Dallas in Super Bowl 12. For Alzado, the loss stung, but the message was clear. He wasn't just a survivor anymore. He was the force that made Denver matter, and every offense in the league had to answer to him. The trade to Cleveland in August 1979 wasn't a gentle send-off. Alzado had walked out of Broncos training camp after a contract dispute, and Denver's front office answered by shipping him to the Browns for a package of draft picks. He landed in a locker room that was hungry for an edge. Cleveland hadn't seen the playoffs since 1972, and their defense was missing that one unhinged spark. At 30, Alzado was no longer the new kid, but he wasn't slowing down. He brought his full arsenal: the wild eyes, the trash talk, the gym fanaticism, and the same relentless, violent hands that had made him a terror in Denver. The results were immediate. In his first season as a Brown, he racked up 80 tackles and 7 sacks, earning second-team All-AFC honors. But 1980 was the year he detonated. 9 sacks, first-team All-Pro, and the engine behind a defense that helped the Browns clinch the AFC Central. That team, the Cardiac Kids, lived on the edge, winning 11 games, most of them in the final minutes, and Alzado's chaos up front gave their offense just enough breathing room to pull off those comebacks. Opposing coaches started circling Cleveland on the schedule and warning their linemen, "Don't let 77 get into your head, or you'll lose the game before it starts." Inside the huddle, Alzado's presence changed the temperature. He challenged teammates, jawed with coaches, and set the tone in film sessions. The Browns' defense, once soft, now played with an edge that mirrored his own. The city noticed. In a town that respected toughness above all, Alzado fit right in. He didn't just play for Cleveland, he gave them a defensive identity. The Browns rode that wave to the playoffs for the first time in 8 years, and while their run ended in heartbreak, Alzado walked out of the stadium that January with his reputation bigger than ever. The league had tried to tame him by trading him out of Denver. Instead, he'd only become more dangerous. Al Davis didn't just want another defensive lineman, he wanted a force of nature. The Raiders traded for Alzado ahead of the 1982 season, and the fit was instant. In a locker room built on outlaws and second chances, Alzado's fury became an asset, not a liability. The Raiders had just landed in Los Angeles and needed a tone setter. Alzado gave them more than that. He gave them an identity. He showed up in black and silver, 33 years old, and played like he was 23. That first season, cut short by a strike, he racked up 7 sacks in just 9 games and took home the PFWA Comeback Player of the Year. The Raiders fed off his energy. They made the playoffs, and every opponent knew what was coming. A front anchored by a berserker who didn't care about his own body or anyone else's. The next year, Alzado turned up the volume. He started all 16 games, logged 7 more sacks, and set the tone in every pile-up and sideline scrum. The Raiders stormed through the regular season and then detonated in the playoffs. By January, they were the last team standing in the AFC. In Super Bowl XVIII, the Raiders hammered Washington 38-9. Alzado chased Joe Theismann all night, collapsing the pocket, shoving linemen out of the way, and leaving bruises that lasted weeks. When the final whistle blew, he'd finally done it. Super Bowl champion. The helmet came off, and for once, the tears weren't from rage. They were from relief. After a decade of fighting for respect, the ring was his. In that moment, surrounded by confetti and chaos, Lyle Alzado was exactly where he'd always believed he belonged, at the center of the wreckage, champion at last. The NFL didn't waste time rewriting the rulebook after the 1982 season. In the spring of 1983, the competition committee passed a new policy. Any player caught using a helmet as a weapon, whether swinging, striking, or throwing, would face automatic disqualification. The language was clear. A helmet that's not being worn can't be used against an opponent for any reason. The penalty? 15 yards and immediate ejection from the game. This wasn't just a warning shot. For the first time, the league drew a hard line on equipment as weapon incidents, giving officials the power to toss a player on the spot. The rule made it into the official code that fall, a direct response to what had played out on the Coliseum sideline. What started as one man's outburst now shaped the boundaries of NFL violence. The message was simple: cross the line, and you're gone. By the spring of 1991, Lyle Alzado was facing a battle no helmet or fist could win. Doctors diagnosed him with brain lymphoma, a rare and aggressive cancer. The news came just weeks after his wedding, and within months his weight had dropped by nearly 100 pounds. In July, Alzado broke the code of silence that had ruled NFL locker rooms for decades. In a first-person piece for Sports Illustrated, he admitted to years of steroid use, dating back to college, through every season, every comeback, and even into retirement. He wrote, I lied to you, I lied to my family." Alzado believed the drugs had destroyed his immune system and triggered his cancer. He didn't ask for sympathy. Instead, he begged young athletes to learn from his mistakes. Less than a year later, on May 14, 1992, Alzado died at 43. His confession turned him into a warning, proof that greatness sometimes comes with a price no one should have to pay. In the 1982 AFC divisional playoff, Lyle Alzado's helmet throw at Chris Ward resulted in a penalty, and by 1983, the NFL had enacted a rule specifically banning the use of a helmet as a weapon. Alzado's journey from Brooklyn hardship to all-pro dominance was marked by 112 career sacks, a Super Bowl title, and relentless aggression that redefined defensive fear. But his legacy is inseparable from the costs, repeated injuries, public admission of steroid use in Sports Illustrated, and his death from lymphoma at 43. The exact link between steroids and his illness remains unproven, as medical experts still debate causation. Today, the league's helmet rule stands as a direct response to his actions, referenced whenever similar incidents arise. Lyle Alzado forced the NFL to reckon with the consequences of violence on and off the field. His story endures as both a warning and a milestone in football history.